Welcome back. It is time to bow our heads and say a prayer for these couples on Love is Blind, because not only do they need a therapist, but they need Jesus.
In this moment, the best thing that I can do for us is give you the opportunity to answer first.
So come on, have a seat, a couple seats, get comfortable, because we're going to get into these attachment styles of the Love is Blind cast of season 4. So let's get into it. So let's start off with Marshall and Jacqueline. So Marshall and Jacqueline have I think a very relatable, typical relationship. Okay, now hear me out, because I know some of y'all about to get in y'all feelings, but we got to get into it. And so Jacqueline and Marshall are some of y'all. Okay, some of y'all are so in y'all hurt that y'all can't see a good man when you see one. Okay, because you're not healed. You haven't been to therapy. You're used to toxic relationships. You're used to the, oh, you love me? That toxic type of love where it's the pain is love. You know what they remind me of? The Blueface and Rock kind of love. You know, Krishan and Blueface. That's what they remind me of. Some of y'all feel like that type of love is really love when it's toxic. Okay, we're gonna call a thing, and it is toxic. So Marshall and Jacqueline has a lot of hurt, a lot of unhealed wounds, a lot of I want the Russell because I think I'm Sierra, but I'm not really ready for no Russell. Because if some of y'all saw a Russell at the grocery store, y'all would not recognize a Russell. And I'm not saying like Marshall is completely a Russell, but he has characteristics of me. His attachment style to me is more, I feel like it's anxious, but with some secure sprinkled in. You know, a chocolate cupcake, but then at the top it might have, you know, the chocolate going down the sides, the caramel. So that's what it reminds me of. He is probably an anxious attachment style with some secure mixed in. And you have Jacqueline, who is more of your fearful avoidant attachment style. And so you bring both these two together, and what do you know? It's a train wreck. It's a train wreck. You know, her telling him that he needed to be more manly, you weren't man enough. That's toxic, y'all. That's not love. That is not love right there. So many things happen between them where it was not going to work out. I think she really needs her own therapy. She has to work through the familiar issues related to her family. And I think sometimes we don't recognize how much of an impact our family has on us as people, what we take on, who we take care of. It really leaves us in a place where we don't have room for ourselves and we don't have room to love ourselves. And that's what we're seeing here. She is probably taking care of a lot of things related to her family. She might be first generation here, and just the pressures of being that first generation provider person in your family and the weight that comes with. And here you have Marshall, who is all in. And that is the sad thing, is that he's so all in that he has given her chance after chance, because he really came here for love. He was tired of the relationships he had been through before. And I think that clouds your mind, that you want love so bad that you are clouded by the red flags, the yellow flags. Men and women, I think sometimes avoid, don't want to see because I'm blind, some of those red flags. And so there were a lot of these here. And I think on the honeymoon, it was a honeymoon. Okay. When they were on the trip, the honeymoon post the pods, you know, there were some signs there when she reacted to, I just don't like Zach. Why, girl? Because he's too nice? Because he's himself? Because he's secure? And let me tell y'all, people who are anxious, disorganized attachment, they often project or don't like people who are secure, because those people represent what they are currently not in their own lives. So that is the only thing I can think of. But why she doesn't like Zach? But we'll get into that later. But for this couple, their attachment styles don't match. You have anxious and fearful avoidant. Those two will not work long term. And you'll see a lot of toxicity because of those attachment styles. So let me know, do you know your attachment style? Matter of fact, do you know your partner's attachment style? Okay, that's what we really need to know, because you might know your own. You might know your own love language, but do you know your man's, your girlfriend's, whoever you're with? Do you know their attachment style? So that is Marshall and Jacqueline. Marshall is anxious with some secure sprinkled in. Jacqueline is fearful avoidant with more fearful avoidant sprinkled in, okay? It's just the recipe for disaster. And so now we're gonna move on to Kwame and Chelsea. Kwame and Chelsea. Now, Kwame, okay, I think has a more avoidant attachment style, and Chelsea is anxious. So let's start with Kwame, okay? Because this ain't his first rodeo. Yes, he has been on other reality shows trying to find love. I don't know if y'all know, but he was on actually casting for Married at First Sight. Yes, he was trying to find him a wife on there. See, Kwame is gonna be a dating show homie hopper. He's gonna go from one show to the next because I think he's really here for the cameras. He is not feeling Chelsea. Maybe he was like in the pods. I think he has a lot of his own underlying issues with some self-identity things related to his mother. I think there might be some internalized hatred for his own, like, maybe being black. When he said that he didn't want to go by Kwame, he wanted to go by something more Americanized, Eurocentric. That to me was like, brother, what's wrong with Kwame? Kwame, what's wrong with that name? Okay, come on. Do you really want to be yourself here? Or do you want to, be assimilated more into the Eurocentric aspect of the world? So yeah, he has some issues himself. When his mother, this is the first time I've seen a show where normally they blur out the voice. They might blur out the picture. They at least have the person's name at the bottom. His mama was like, I want no part of this. She didn't have her voice on there. Her name didn't pop up on the screen. That's how you know his mama was not here for the BS. Okay, so can people really stay together when their family does not support or agree with what they are doing? I don't really think so. So many issues related to him. I really think you could tell when he was about to meet her father, he couldn't pretend no more. Okay, he was tired of pretending. When she said, oh, my father's name is Charles, and he's like, so is mine. He had checked out. He was done. There's only so long you can pretend to really be into somebody. And I think having to be around Chelsea so much, he just could not put on that role much longer. And I feel like it's going to continue to go downhill. They're not going to get married. Come on, y'all. Y'all really think they're going to get married? No. And let's move on to Chelsea. Let me know what y'all think about Kwame. Do you think he has some internalized self-hatred for his blackness? Because I see it. Okay. So let's move on to Chelsea. Now, Chelsea reminds me of a girl's girl. She is probably the one person in her friend group who is still single. And so that really, she has on this lens of, I'm the only one in my friend group who is still single. I don't have kids. I need to find somebody. And so you see a lot of that. And I remember a couple years ago, maybe 10 years ago, there was this whole thing where women were painting their apartments entirely pink. They had pink pillows, pink walls. And though we did not see Chelsea's apartment in the pink aspect, it really brought my mind back to that time where women were just very much having their whole apartments be pink. And I often thought during that time when this was a popular thing, what do men think when they go into a woman's house and everything is pink? So let me know, if you were a man and you went into your girlfriend or somebody you were dating to their house for the first time, their house was completely pink, what would you think? But anyway, she is blinded by, I'm just tired. I'm tired of being alone. And there are so many red flags between her and Kwame, but she is just so tired, exhausted, that, you know, she's gonna ignore the red flags. And so her blindness is leading her into a relationship that would never really last. Her anxiety is really the forefront of the relationship. You see how anxious she is. I think she's so anxious that rubs off on Kwame and pushes him, Kwame, and starts to push him away. He's already not really interested, but being around someone who is so anxious sometimes, it can be off-putting, especially in a relationship. It's exhausting. You basically have the weight of that person's wants, needs on your shoulders because they need the validation that you are interested. So Chelsea is really needing his validation all the time that he's interested, and it's getting heavy. And unfortunately, she's gonna end up single again, back out there trying to find somebody. And it's quite sad. So her attachment style is very anxious. I wonder what her relationship is like with her mother. They talk about her father. Kwame doesn't seem like he has healthy relationships with either of his parents. He seems very lost, just trying to find himself. He's the type of person I think is trying to find himself in a relationship. And that is the most unhealthiest thing you can do, is trying to be finding yourself in a relationship. Because your whole identity gets tied into that relationship, and then you don't realize, who am I really? Okay, who am I outside of this relationship? You just are so busy trying to just mold yourself to whatever you're in that you lose sense of self. And I really think that reminds me of him going from these different shows. He's just molding himself into whatever that show needs him to be. And that is not going to work out. So what do y'all think about Kwame and Chelsea? I just don't see it lasting. I think she was a second pick. She gives me pick me vibes. Pick me. I need to be picked. I need to be loved. Anxious with somebody who is a fearful, avoidant attachment style. It's not going to work. Okay. So now let's move on to our next couple. So now let's get into some secure attachment styles. All right. We're going to get into Brett and Tiffany. Now, I think they're going to make it, because when old girl went into his apartment, she was like, "Ooh, you got money. I see these shoes. What's the most expensive thing you ever bought?" She was like, "Okay." But aside from that, like, I'm not saying it's all because of the money. I think there's a legit relationship here, secure attachment styles. It seems like they have healthy relationships within their friend group. We haven't seen Brett's friend group yet, but in hers, it's unlike Micah's. Micah's is like more toxic, but I'll get into that. But Tiffany seems very secure in her job, her career. I love how she's just herself. She can be very goofy, sometimes awkward, but she just seems so in love with Brett. I think they're really gonna make it. Brett himself also is very quiet. He's been through a lot of things with some loss in his life. I want to see him open up more. I want to see him talk about his feelings, be vulnerable. He seems like the most grounded person, I think, out of the group, giving advice to the other guys in the group. So I think that they are secure. When you have two people who are secure in a relationship, they are able to have separate lives. They're able to have lives together. I really think that they're in a place in their life where they really want love. And so I think they're going to work. And I'm pretty sure they get married. So let's move on to my other secure couple. I'm going to say that Zach and Bliss are my other secure couple. And my other couple that I believe are going to get married. Now, in the beginning, Zach made a mistake. I think sometimes we can listen to our gut, and our gut is like, okay, this feels right. But then we have those intrusive thoughts that come in and tell us like, no, that's not really right. And you're like, do I listen to my gut? Do I listen to these negative thoughts? And I think for him, he listened to the more intrusive thoughts that were making him second guess his decision to go with Bliss. Luckily, she gave him a second chance. He took accountability. I feel like he took accountability multiple times throughout the episodes about how he made a mistake. And I think it's just a very healthy dynamic. And I think, it's secure. Bliss, I feel like it's secure. She knows her worth. She understands. I feel like they probably had deeper conversations outside of the camera once they reconnected, because it really seems like they understand the process. They understand what happened. Are there little blimps that they're going to go through like anyone who's in a relationship? Of course. Now, I don't think she's going to go and have that mindset of like being second best. Like we saw, what was it, season 3? When one of the couples, the whole their relationship was overshadowed by the fact that he picked her second. I don't see that here. I think Zach is also more in tune to who he is, more comfortable, stronger, has better emotional intelligence than that last couple that we saw in season 3. So I think they're going to be really able to overcome this. Zach is strong. Bliss is very strong. And I think they come from what we can see from Bliss, a healthy family dynamic. But in this situation, even if Bliss's family does not agree or support what she's doing, I think they trust her. And they know that they raised her right. So even though they don't have the most support in the love is blind concept and idea, I still think that they can be a good couple outside of the doubts of their family. I don't think some of the other relationships in this season have that, because they themselves are not whole. They're not secure in who they are as people. Like what we see with Kwame and Chelsea. Kwame does not have the family support, and he does not have a sense of self and who he is. So you have those two things work not only against him as a person, but also in his relationship. Whereas here, I think they've both been through some things. They have understanding. They just seem very stable. So I think they're going to make it. So secure attachment. Now let's move on to our last couple, Paul and Micah. Two anxious people. And so I think they're both very anxious, but they don't show anxious attachment style in the way that we're used to seeing it. I think their attachment style, at least Paul's, is more anxious, but not as blatantly obvious. I think he comes from a strong family background, with his mother being very social, having a loud voice, personality. And I think sometimes parents who have that really outgoing personality can kind of make their kids go a little bit inward. And he's a little shy, a little nerdy. I think he's too young to be getting married. He's still in some ways in that party boy kind of stage, but his nerdiness distracts you from the fact that he is very much still, I think, in his party boy stage. And he's very calm. Micah is a mean girl. Mean girl energy. I think her friends are mean girl energy. I think she is somebody also who's going to be a show floater. She's going to travel through this Netflix metaverse and end up on different shows. Do I think she really wants to get married? Yes, but I think she's not ready. I think she needs some therapy. I think she gets a lot of her self-worth from people, places, and things. You see that in her relationship with her friend who they met at the bar. I really didn't like that girl. How is it that sometimes in relationships, people allow their friends to dictate how they function in relationships? I hear this often sometimes where people are like, well, if my friends don't like him, that really influences whether I like him. But at the end of the day, are your friends sleeping with him? Or are you? Why give so much power to your friendships to dictate how you function, how you move forward with someone? Don't be that person. You have to learn that it is okay to have your own beliefs, your own thoughts, your own opinions, and for you to be in a relationship with somebody, even if your friends are not the biggest fan of them. Might there be reasons or red flags that your friends are trying to tell you? Yes. But in this situation, girl was a hater. Did you apply for the show and you didn't get picked? Because that's what it was giving me, was that I didn't get picked, so I'm gonna, not be supportive. She was a hater. And I can see that in past relationships Micah has had, she probably sabotages those relationships because Micah is so, she's a person who struggles to make her own decisions. Well, girl, what do you think? Do you like him? You don't? All right, well, I'm not going to see him anymore. You need more support in your in your friendships. You also need to be around people who are about growth within themselves and within you. Do they pour growth into your friendship? Are they pouring growth into you as a person? Because in this situation, I just felt like it was just toxic. Micah's toxic. Her friendship is toxic. I also think they had too much to drink. But yeah, I just don't think that people need to recognize that sometimes as you're growing and trying to evolve, you can't take everybody with you. And Micah needs to leave this girl where she is, because it seems like when Micah is by herself, she's able to hold her own, have confidence, have intelligent conversations. But then when she's around her friends, or really anybody, because even with the girl she became friends with in the pod, she molds herself into what those friendships need. And so she's another person to me that appeared lost and just really needs some foundation. I wonder what her relationship is like with her own family, her upbringing, because yeah, she kind of came off like she'll mold herself to whatever situation that she's in. So let me know, what are y'all thoughts? What y'all think of Love is Blind? Am I off with my attachment style analysis? Let me know in the comments. And make sure you like, subscribe, hit me with some emojis in the comments, and I'll see you in my next video.